Hey guys, it's Emily, and today I will be reading books based on my favorite Christmas movies. So one of my favorite holiday traditions is watching Christmas movies all throughout the month of December, and so today I thought that I would read books that are based on my favorite Christmas movies. So during this reading vlog, I will be reading 4 different books based on 4 of my favorite Christmas movies. So the first one is Christmas with the Kranks, and for that I will be reading Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. Then we have A Christmas Carol. Technically, it is a book first, but there have been so many movie adaptations and I do enjoy watching them. And for that, I will be reading The Night I Met Father Christmas by Ben Miller. Up next, we have The Nutcracker, which is technically a ballet first and foremost. There is also a book that was written based on the ballet, but I will personally be reading The Enchanted Sonata by Heather Dixon Walwork. Finally, we have The Holiday, which is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, not only for the holidays, but just in general. And for that, I will be reading The Christmas Swap by Cindy Barker. So I hope you guys are excited for this video. I would love if you would leave me your favorite Christmas movies down in the comments below. I love watching them throughout the month of December, so I'm always looking for recommendations. But now, let's dive in. So I have decided to start with Christmas with the Kranks, and so I will be reading Skipping Christmas first. If you're not familiar with the story, Christmas with the Kranks follows a couple who finds out at the beginning of December that their daughter will not be coming home for Christmas. So the Kranks decide to skip Christmas entirely and go on a vacation instead. Their friends and neighbors are absolutely appalled by their decision, and they put a lot of pressure on the Kranks to forget this decision to skip Christmas and celebrate instead. The Kranks are really set in stone with their decision until on Christmas Day, their daughter calls and tells them, "Surprise, I'm coming home for Christmas." So now they have to scramble all day to create a Christmas that will live up to their daughter's expectation. So I really love this movie. It is one of my favorites. I feel like it's kind of underrated if you compare it to other Christmas classics, but this one is just so wholesome, and I don't know, I just really enjoy it. It's funny, it's all about community, and it's a lot of fun. And the main characters, the couple, are played by Jamie Lee Curtis and Tim Allen, who I absolutely love. So I just really enjoy watching this movie every single year. So I am quite curious to read Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. This is the book that the movie is based on. I'm not too familiar with John Grisham's work, but I do know that he tends to write mystery thrillers. So I am quite curious to see how this is going to play out because I've never read anything by him before. I do know that he's really well known and beloved, but I don't really know what I can expect from this book. I know it's quite short, so technically I should be able to read it quite quickly, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And now let's dive into our book. I have finished reading Skipping Christmas and I hated it. As I was reading the book, I kept thinking, did the Grinch write this? Because honestly, it's one of the worst books that I've ever read. Basically, this is pretty much a play-by-play of the movie in terms of plot, but whereas the movie is fun, it's lighthearted, the book is boring and lifeless. I think where the book really missed its marks, it's with his main characters. So basically we have Nora and Luther, who's our main couple, and they are 2 of the worst people that I've ever read about. So basically we have Luther, who is a tax accountant, and he's like the impersonated version of the Grinch. Like honestly, he is the absolute worst. He keeps saying how Christmas is expensive and that's why they're like skipping on Christmas this year. But he drives a Lexus and donates like hundreds of dollars at a time. So I'm like, money is not an issue here. Like clearly money is not your issue. But he is just like the worst person ever. He keeps making these comments that are just like not even something that you should be saying. Like this book is low-key fatphobic and racist. Luther, my character, says stuff like he sees people in his car while he's waiting for his wife at the grocery store, and in front of the grocery store there's like a burger joint or like a fast food type of restaurant, and he mentions the people who are eating there as large people, and I'm like, first of all, fat people, or like however you want to call them, are not the only people you'll see in a fast food restaurant. And then second of all, large people, what does that even mean? Like you're trying to be nice but you're not. Like just call them fat and that's it. But like the comment alone just made me super uncomfortable. And like all throughout the book there's all of these mentions of like the main characters losing weight, and it just made me so angry because honestly the losing weight aspect of it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Like I don't get why it had to be mentioned in the book. Like obviously these people are very unhappy with their lives. They ate next to nothing trying to lose weight. Like he would eat 300 calories and then go on the treadmill to lose it right away. And I'm like, this is so unhealthy. And then the racist part, oh, that one made me really angry. First of all, he referred to Peruvians as savages. And I'm like, no, you did not just say that. Like, honestly, no, just no. And then when Blair, their daughter, comes home with a Peruvian doctor, their first worry is that his skin is going to be darker than theirs. They're like, he's not really dark skin, is he? And I was just like, what? Excuse me? And then when they see him and they see that his skin is like 2 shades lighter than Luther's, who like has been tanning for his vacation, they're like so relieved and suddenly they love him. And I'm like, whoa, this is some racist shit out there. Like, wow. I am speechless, honestly. I know this book was written like early 2000, like I think 2001, but still, like there's no fucking way that you would keep that in a book. Like I said, speechless. I was just like, oh my God, I just read that. And I wanted to DNF the book so bad, but because of this video, I just kept reading. I pushed and I pushed, but yeah, I did that for you guys. But this book is the absolute worst. Like the characters are boring and like the worst people ever. The writing is so flat. I was like, this is a well-known author who has written like dozens of books and it makes this book so boring. What the fuck am I reading about? Like, I love the movie and I really want to rewatch it because like now the version, like the idea that I have in my head is like tainted with this book. But I really want to rewatch the movie now so that I can see if it's as bad as a book, because like I remember loving the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I kind of want to rewatch it because it is one of my favorites. But yeah, we'll have to do that at some point this week because like I don't want to have this association in my head anymore. But yeah, I gave it 1 star. I want to erase this book from my memory. I don't want to have read this book because it was so bad. But next, I'm going to be reading The Enchanted Sonata by Heather Dixon Walwork. So this book came in the mail yesterday and look at this beautiful cover. I am in love. So this book is a retelling of the Nutcracker and it has like a dash of the Pied Piper apparently. So as most girls my age, I grew up on the Barbie and the Nutcracker movie. I loved this movie. I rewatched it so many times as a kid. I have the VHS tape of it. I received it for my birthday when I was 6 years old and I've rewatched it several times since then. It is one of my favorite movies, low-key. I absolutely adore this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. Like I don't remember the last time I watched it. So I think it's time for me to rewatch it. But anyway, I love the Nutcracker story. I've seen the ballet also when I was like in high school. I think I was 12 or 13 and I absolutely loved it. I love the music and I just love the ballet and the story behind it. So I love me a good Nutcracker adaptation. Like I've seen the new Disney movie version of it and I actually quite enjoyed it, even though it's not the same as the original tale, but I do like it. And I just love the story behind Nutcracker. So I'm very excited to be reading a retelling. So this one, I think I'm going to read you the back because I've already started reading it. I'm on page 49. But I feel like the best way to describe this book will be to read the back because it's kind of hard to explain. So Clara Stahlbaum has her future perfectly planned. Marry the handsome pianist, Johann Kahler, and settle down to a life full of music. But all that changes when Clara receives a mysterious and magical Nutcracker. Whisked away to his world, an enchanted empire of beautiful palaces, fickle fairies, enormous rats, and a prince, Clara must face a magician who uses music as magic, and the future she thought she wanted. The Enchanted Sonata, a retelling of the Nutcracker ballet with a dash of the Pied Piper, will captivate readers of all ages. So far I've only read 50 pages of this and we're following 2 timelines. We're following Clara's, where she gets a Nutcracker and everything, and then we're also following the Princess timeline, where I guess we'll see how the magician will like affect this kingdom and like how Clara has to save it. But so far the timelines have not collided. Clara has read the story, but she has not entered the kingdom. So I'm interested to see how this is going to happen. I think while I'm reading this, I would love to listen to the music, like Tchaikovsky's soundtrack for the Nutcracker. I think this makes this so much more magical and like perfect. So this is probably what I'm gonna be doing. But so far I'm enjoying it. I'm very curious to see how this will all play out. And hopefully I will like this more than the last book that I read. So I have finished reading The Enchanted Sonata by Heather Dixon Walwork. So I initially was going to film updates as I was reading the book, but things happened in my personal life and I didn't have the time, nor was I in the right headspace to film. So I ended up just like finishing the book and not really updating you guys throughout, but I did really enjoy this one. It's been a while since I've experienced the Nutcracker story and I love it with all of my heart. Reading this made me realize how much I miss this story and I really want to read or watch more adaptations of this story because I love it. It's so perfect for the winter time. Like, yes, it's a Christmas story, and even this one, it's not necessarily Christmas themed, but it does take place on Christmas Day. So the vibes are more wintry than Christmassy, but I had such an amazing time reading this, especially because of the world building. So one of my favorite aspects of the Nutcracker story is the world that Clara finds herself into. So if you're not familiar with it, the Nutcracker follows Clara, our main character, who receives a Nutcracker for Christmas. And this Nutcracker is not ordinary, and suddenly she finds herself whisked away to this world that the Nutcracker actually comes from, and they have to break the curse and turn him back into a human. So this one is no different in the sense that, yes, Clara receives a Nutcracker, and she gets whisked away to this new world, and they have to save the kingdom and break the curse, obviously. But I think my favorite aspect of this whole book is, yes, the story is amazing, but the world building was chef's kiss. I loved it so much, and I love the whole world that Clara finds herself into, no matter the story or just like the adaptation that I'm reading or watching. But this one was really well done. I loved how it was similar to what I remember from it. So like the whole winter thing, and there's like the rats, there's the candy that's super important, and the fairies. But the author also managed to make this her own thing, and I really appreciated that about it. I just love this world building. I will be frank though, there is a lot of world building within the book, and the author uses a lot of flashbacks to explain what happens in the present or like the future, I guess, but it was done in a way that I thought was really smart. So just be aware that if you're not someone who loves books that have a lot of world building, like it takes 100 pages for the action to start, which I did think took a while to get there. I'm someone who's rarely into plot-driven stories, so this took a while to get there, but I did really enjoy it still. Like, I think it was well done. Like, the flashbacks add action, so it made it more interesting, if that makes sense. But I had an amazing time reading this, and I think it would be such a perfect winter read. I also really love how the author incorporated the music into the story. So the Nutcracker is first and foremost a ballet, and so music is important because, I mean, the dancers have to dance to something, right? But I love how, whereas this is a book, you wouldn't necessarily expect her to include music in it because obviously you can't experience the story with music unless you decide to like put on the soundtrack and like listen to the soundtrack as you're reading. But I loved how music was such an integral part of the plot, and it is what drove the plot forward. Like, the magic was based on music, so obviously music takes an important part in the story, and like Clara is someone who loves music, so obviously that is part of the book. And I haven't read a lot of Nutcracker retellings. I actually really want to read more, so if you guys have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below because I really want to read more Nutcracker stories. So overall, I really loved it. I loved the Nutcracker character, especially. Like, Clara was fine, but the Nutcracker I really loved his character arc, and he was also kind of sassy, so obviously that stole my heart. But I had an amazing time reading this, and it was just like the perfect winter read, especially at this time of year. As I was saying, yes, it does take place on Christmas Day, but you don't have to read it for Christmas because it doesn't take like a festive turn. Like, it's not really about Christmas, it's about like the kingdom and like winter, and I don't know, it's like the perfect winter read in my opinion. And like, I would totally read more or recommend that you read this during the winter time because it would be perfect. Like, it's super atmospheric and cozy, and I had an amazing time reading this, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars simply because I feel like there was a lot of world building. It took a while to get there. It doesn't feel like a 5 stars, but it was really amazing, and I'm so glad that I read it. Now I really want to rewatch the Barbie and the Nutcracker movie. So now that means that we're going to be reading our next book, and for me that's going to be The Night I Met Father Christmas by Ben Miller. So I've heard that this story is loosely based on A Christmas Carol, so that's why I'm using it for the Christmas Carol movie. I really enjoyed the Christmas Carol story, even though I didn't love the original book. Like, I read the Dickens story, wasn't that big a fan, but I love the concept of like the 3 ghosts that visit like the Scrooge. So I love the concept. I've seen a couple of adaptations. I love the one with Jim Carrey. I think that's the one that I've seen last, and I really like this one. I've seen a couple, but I think this is one of the really good ones if you're looking for a new one to watch. I really recommend this one. But yeah, that's why I'm using it. I don't really know if it's that big a deal, like if the Christmas Carol thing is that big a deal, because it's obviously not only a Christmas Carol retelling because it says The Night I Met Father Christmas, so there's probably going to be like a Santa Claus story involved as well. But I'm looking forward to it, and I don't think it's going to be a long read per se because this is middle grade and it has like illustrations throughout. And I don't know if it's like a Santa origin story. I love those, so I don't really know what to expect from this. But I'm looking forward to reading it, and now I have to get into work and then we will be able to start reading this book. Hello, so I have finished reading The Night I Met Father Christmas by Ben Miller. I don't know why people said that this is a loosely based Christmas Carol retelling, because quite frankly it pretty much follows the story to a T in my opinion. Like, yes, the characters are different and the idea behind it is a little bit different, but the story itself, like the Christmas Carol retelling, is pretty close to the original story. So I'm not too sure why people said that this was like loosely inspired by A Christmas Carol, because obviously like it is a retelling. Like I would totally consider this a retelling, and I had a great time reading it. I think it's such a fun Santa Claus origin story. I love how the author managed to intertwine A Christmas Carol with the origin story of Father Christmas. I thought it was really nicely done. So I don't think I told you guys what this book is about, but basically we're following this young boy named Jackson, and on Christmas Eve he finds Santa delivering presents at his house, and Santa hurts himself, and so Jackson has to come to the rescue basically, and he'll help Santa deliver the presents to kids all around the world. But while they're doing their like delivery situation, he asks Santa, how did you become Santa? And this is where he tells his story, and this is where like the Christmas Carol retelling kind of intertwines without being too much of a spoiler. But I thought this was such a fun and lovely story. I think this would be perfect for younger kids. I feel like it read a little young, so I think younger children would really enjoy this. I think it would be perfect for Christmas Eve. So if you guys have not read this, I would highly recommend it, but also I think it would be the perfect Christmas Eve book. So if you are able to get your hands on a copy and like to read it on Christmas Eve, I think it would be perfect. I wish I had read it on Christmas Eve because it would have been like the perfect way to, I don't know, celebrate Christmas. I think it would be like perfect because it's kind of like the anticipation of Santa delivering the gifts and everything. I don't know. But overall, I think I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's a nice retelling of A Christmas Carol. So if you're looking for a retelling, this one is really good. I think it's kind of different as well. So it's really nice to see a different take on it. But now that means that we have one more book to read, and I've kept my favorite movie for last. So we have The Holiday, and so I'm reading The Christmas Swap by Sandy Barker. I've already started reading the book. I'm actually 40% through the book. So far, I'm really having a great time reading that. It's the story of 3 girls who like got to know each other when they were 11, and they stayed really close throughout the years, and now they're in their 30s, and for Christmas they decided to swap their Christmas basically. So we have one girl who lives in Boulder, Colorado, one girl lives in London, England, and then we have one girl who lives in Melbourne, Australia, and they decide to swap Christmases. So one of the girls will go to England, one of the girls goes to Colorado, and one of the girls goes to Melbourne in Australia. It's really a fun story so far. I think we have 3 ladies who have distinct personalities and they're really fun to follow. I don't necessarily have a favorite. I have one that I kind of prefer so far, probably because I relate to her the most, but I enjoy reading all 3 stories equally, so that's really nice. So far I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where things will go because I'm only like 40% through, so obviously like the best is yet to come, hopefully. But one thing that I wanted to say is at the beginning of the book, they refer to the holiday. Like one of the characters actually says, oh, let's do like in the holiday and swap our Christmases. And I thought it was so funny because I'm reading it because it's like an adaptation. And so I thought it was so hilarious. I was like, oh my God, I'm reading this because of this movie. It's so nice that they're referring to it. All right, so I have finished reading The Christmas Swap by Sandy Barker. Overall, I did enjoy it. However, I'll be honest, the romance was kind of a turn off for me, meaning that I feel like everything happened super quickly. All of these girls end up in a relationship, and some of them are like willing to move across like the world to be with their significant other. They say, I love you, and they just met. Like they met a week ago, and all of them are willing to do some big change in their lives because of this dude that they met. And all of them end up with the first guy that they meet on this trip. And I'm like, what the hell is that? That whole thing felt a little bit unrealistic for me. And I don't know, towards the end I was just like rolling my eyes because I did not like this as much as I thought I would. Like, I was really here for the romance between some of the characters, but for some of them I was just like, this is moving way too fast. Like, there's no way that this would happen in real life. It just didn't feel realistic. So overall, I had a great time reading this and I would recommend it. I think if you guys love the holiday, you would really enjoy this because the premise is pretty similar, and even the events that happen throughout the book are pretty similar to a certain extent. Obviously, like, they don't even go to the same locations and everything, so it's a little bit different, but some of it is pretty similar. And like I said, they refer to the movie quite a bit in the book, which I thought was a nice touch. I think my main issue with this book is that I didn't end up loving the characters as much as I thought I would. With the holiday, a big part of it is that I loved every single like couple, I guess, or like single character. So I loved Iris, I loved Miles, I loved Graham, and I loved Amanda. Whereas with the Christmas swap, I loved Lucy and Will, I liked Chloe and Archer, and I didn't really like Jules, but I did like Matt. So overall, like, I feel like it missed that connection that made The Holiday such an amazing movie for me, and so that's why I didn't enjoy the book as much. But I would still recommend it. I think it might just be an issue with me and not so much with the book itself, because it was a great story and I think it would be perfect for fans of The Holiday. So if this is something that you're interested in, I would recommend it. It's pretty good. I think in the end I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So now that means that this is the end of this little challenge. I had such a great time filming this video and just reading all of the books. Some of them were hits, such as The Enchanted Sonata, which is probably my favorite book that I read this week, and some of them were complete miss, such as Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. But I'm really glad that I managed to read books that are based on my favorite Christmas movies. If anything, it really made me want to rewatch all of them and just watch some Christmas movies. So it has put me in a mood for Christmas, which is great. But now I guess that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give this a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And I guess that's it now. We'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!